First, let's start with the Member of Parliament for Central Manchester, Honourable Miss Rhoda Amoy Crawford. I will not go back in history, but I told you in one of my presentations that I knew her when she was about the age of 12 and had the opportunity to teach her in a summer school once. She is a brilliant lady who had now taken the leading position in politics for Central Manchester and had become a very popular voice and a very loved young lady by many persons in Jamaica, especially Central Manchester. Her voice could be heard a few days after it was announced that Jaden was missing, echoing throughout social media. And for those of you who had not heard, I am going to now play a part of one of her requests to Jaden regarding his whereabouts, as I had taken it from a social media. Just a clip.
I met him recently at the graduation, the school leaving exercise that was held in Newport. He's from Betterborough Primary School. He was the recipient of the Top Boy Award given through my office. You know, very intelligent. I mean, even when I gave him the award, he was saying, MP, I'm going to work so hard. I'm not going to let you down. So, I mean, when I saw the news, it tugged at my heart. But then when I saw that it's this youngster that I interacted with, it tugged at me even deeper.
Minister Crawford said.
That's the voice of Minister MP for Central Manchester, Ms. Rhoda Crawford. You've heard it well, and she had said it well, based on her knowledge and what she heard and knew about Jaden Smith. What of those young achievers that had received an award from her? But the question tonight, Ms. Rhoda Crawford, are you willing to tell us, the residents of Central Manchester, what's the latest findings regarding the police investigation into the disappearance of Jaden Smith? Any information, Madam MP, from you, one of Jamaica's Central Manchester leading voice, will be of help to especially the parents who are of great concern. Or, Madam MP, now that you've been given one of those tender positions as a state minister in the Ministry of Education, is it because of that position why you now would need to be silent until the Police Commissioner of Jamaica or the Minister of National Security or the Prime Minister of Jamaica may have to be the one to break the news to Central Manchester, rather than you, Madam MP, Madam State Minister in the Ministry of Education? I know the challenge you may be going under and the pressure from your constituents in regarding what you know. We do know that some information can be very sensitive and is not in your power to share. I once heard you gave a speech that you are not yet a mother, but you do feel the pain that many mothers would feel. I understand what you said, and I understand what you were saying, and I do understand how it feels to want to speak, but due to the position you hold as Member of Parliament and State Minister in the Ministry of Education. At this moment, it's a very tender and tedious position for you. Therefore, you can only speak on your history regarding what you know about Jaden Smith on that day when you gave this brilliant young man one of your choicest awards. I understand. But we do still look forward in hearing from you. The next lady I would like to speak about on our screen at this moment is the Jamaica Minister of Finance. But I'm not speaking about her in her position as Minister of Finance. I am speaking about her in her past position as Minister of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the former minister, and note I said carefully, the former Minister of Education, who is now Minister of Finance in the Jamaican government, on the 11th of December 2023, at a very well-known and popular primary school in St. Catherine, was the guest speaker. And why would I remember such event? I was overseas a week before, and I had to make a visit to Jamaica. And that was the very school that I attended few days before the Minister of Education was at the school. The very day she was giving her speech, I was listening keenly at that very school what she spoke about. From the Jamaica Gleaner, let me quote. The heading from the Jamaica Gleaner would have said, "Principals must comply with the provisions of the Data Protection Act." Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in a nutshell, the Gleaner continued in their article to say, on December the 1st, the Act, which was the year 2022, the Act came into effect. It provides greater safeguards for the handling of personal information of Jamaicans held in physical or electronic form. The Gleaner continued to say, this legislation was passed in 2020 and is set to transform the way organizations manage personal data, including the collection and storage, utilization, disclosure, and disposal. In one of its final paragraphs, the article in the Jamaica Gleaner also said, a quotation from the then Minister of Education, "We are working up to speed with it because all of our schools are now data controlled. As the education system collects mountains of data on every student, every parent, and teachers." End of quote. And those were words from the then Minister of Education. Let me briefly summarize it. The Minister of Education as I quote from the Jamaica Gleaner, in one of her 2022 speech, in the closing of the year 22, as the Jamaica Gleaner had it on the 11th of December 2022, that we, and the minister was speaking on behalf of the Ministry of Education, are working to speed with it, because all of our schools are now database controlled, as the education system collects mountains of data. Note carefully, on every student, on every parent, and on every teacher. End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are accusing the principal of the Manchester High School as being one leading a sacrificial ceremony or some form of sacrificial act regarding the disappearance, dissemination, destruction, and unaliving of Jaden Smith, be careful. Be careful. Because if you listened carefully to the speech that was made by the Minister of Education about the Information Act regarding the protection of the Jamaican children, the Minister of Education had said there is a database that the Ministry of Education is speeding up with that will collect personal data and will store it, deciding to utilize it or to disclose it or to dispose of it. Carefully note the words. Let me say it again. The information that the database collects on every student, on every teacher, on every parent can be utilized, can be stored, can be disclosed. But you didn't hear the other one. It can be disposed of. The principal of Manchester High School would not have anything to do with the disposing of the life of one of his students, a brilliant young man with a bright future, Jaden Smith. Oh, I am not following public discourse. I am bringing you into high level of discussion of intelligence to let you know if the principal of the Manchester High School is involved deeply in carrying out his duty and responsibilities at the highest level that the Ministry of Education expects of him, he has the power, based on what he knows about Jaden Smith, to protect this child at any level, at the highest, if he has to, in order for the Ministry of Education to take action. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this now leads me to the third lady on our screen, the present doctor herself, in her own rights, and one at this moment who is the best to take over from the former minister. Wouldn't it be that if the now Minister of Finance in Jamaica had been one of the driving force in implementing the Data Protection Act of 2020 in Jamaica, wouldn't her influence in passing this act now be the responsibility of the present Minister of Education? Ladies and gentlemen, if the principal of the Manchester High School is aware or was aware of critical information regarding Jaden Smith before the event of that child broken his hip and would have involved in Jaden's life as a mentor in protecting him and his future, what if, when the case of Jaden was brought to the principal, Jaden was not yet a student of the Manchester High School, but because of his matriculation in the primary education system, Manchester High School would have been one of the recipient schools of Bethabra. Bethabra could have been one of the feeding schools for the Manchester High School from which the children would have their first option. Well, follow me carefully. We have in Jamaica what is known as feeder schools. And there are some students whose future can be determined by their matriculation in the education system, that by the time they reach grade 4 and would have done that grade 4 test and move on to the grade 6 test, the tutor of that child could tell which school that child could be a student of next, where high school is concerned. Could this be a case with Jaden Smith, that he was picked from he was at Manchester, at Bethabra, to be a student of the Manchester High School? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring to your attention, for those of you who are planning on demonstrating against the principal of the Manchester High School, before you do so, please go and read about the 2020 Data Protection Act. Or I want you to go to the Jamaica Gleaner and look for that article that was printed on the 11th of December 2022 and 23, and note carefully where the then Minister of Education would have said, and I quote again, "We are working up to speed with it because all of our schools are now data controlled, as the education system collects mountains of data on every student, every parent, and teachers." And that was from the lips of the then Minister of Education, Honorable Favour Williams. She is now the Minister of Finance of Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I present to you the three great women, the protectors regarding information. And does that information includes Jaden Smith the student, Jaden Smith's parents, and the Jaden Smith's teachers. I rest my case. Where Jaden Smith is concerned, I declare these three great women, former Minister of Education, Honorable Favour Williams, now Minister of Finance, and the present Minister of Education, the doctor herself, along with Member of Parliament for Central Manchester, Honorable Lady Crawford, as the protectors of the information regarding the 2020 database, the Protection Act for children, for parents, and for teachers. And that's what is making the Jaden Smith case more challenging and more difficult. The deeper you get, the more you get to know that there are policies and there are laws. I did tell you that my presentation before tonight would have been on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I have not touched that as yet. But think about it for my next presentation. If the Minister of Education in 2020 had been involved in implementing the Database Protection Act, which protects children, which is the student, which protects the teacher, and which protects the parent. This act gives the principal of a school, along with Minister or the Ministry of Education, the power to collect, to utilize, to disclose, and to dissolve any information. And I would assume that regards protecting the rights of our children. I don't want to sound too strange and let you think that this is going to be a blockbuster movie entitled Jaden Smith, but it may one day be. Is it that Jaden Smith had found himself locked in the laws of the land of Jamaica regarding the Data Protection Act? Because the Minister of Education then had said it. Principals must comply with the provision of the data or the Data Protection Act. I do believe the principal of the Manchester High School, ladies and gentlemen, I say it and I repeat it without an apology. And the only way I would apologize is if the principal at the end of the day was to be arrested. And I don't believe that's going to be possible. But I do believe from the depth of my heart, my research and personal investigation, that the principal of the Manchester High School regarding Jaden Smith, irrespective of what the public has to say, was operating based on the 2020 Jamaica Data Protection Act that enforced that principals must apply with the provision of the Data Protection Act. Think about it. The former Minister of Education that was very deeply involved in this act is now Minister of Finance. The now Minister of Education, I have not seen anything where she had yet made any announcement, presentations, or had been to the school. But the State Minister of Education, who is the member of Central Manchester, from whom also Jaden Smith is a recipient of an award, had made her public cry, calling for Jaden. Was the cry heard? Was that call heard? Did someone take Jaden Smith to Member of Parliament, Ms. Rhoda Crawford, who is also the State Minister of Education? We don't know. But it is possible that could have happened. She did plead. She did ask. She did join the search. Ladies and gentlemen, these three ladies on my screen are the three great voices that we must now hear. The three great men I spoke about recently, we must also hear from them. Because these six persons must communicate, must meet at some point along the discourse of searching for Jaden, or must have a plan in what to say to the Jamaica public regarding the investigation on Jaden Smith. Please note, I will not be getting involved with he said, she said, they said on where Jaden's cousin would stay or not stay, whether it's the principal's home or not. No, because, ladies and gentlemen, the principal has power under the provision of the Data Act to protect the child at any means possible. Until next time, I look forward in hearing from you. Please share this discussion. Think about it. And as I said before, if you are one of those persons that are planning, or that is planning, a demonstration in Mandeville against the principal of the Manchester High School, you dare not want to do that or be a part of the demonstration, because you may become a part of one of the greatest mystery ever in Mandeville. You know, I always have a story, and I must close with one tonight. The first story I told you was the similarities between Jaden Smith and Lee Boyd Malvo. I knew Lee Boyd Malvo very well when he was around the age of Jaden Smith. But the difference in this case of Jaden Smith, I do believe he's in good hands and not bad hands. Lee Boyd Malvo ended up in the mentorship of someone who led him down the wrong path. But if Jaden Smith was mentored by the principal of the Manchester High School, he would now be on one of the greatest paths, one to which it is possible that his name Jaden Smith may be even erased from the records of the books of Jamaica. It is possible that Jaden could get a new name and a new identity. It is possible. It is possible. Let's not rule that out, because the child must be protected at any means possible. If Jaden was to be identified and be brought back to his home or his community, his life will never be the same again. People will always see him as the boy who disappeared without a trace, as the boy who has so much information that we want to know. People would be interrogating him and questioning him about his uncle-in-law, his aunt, his cousins, his mom, his dad, his principal, his teacher. And hell, he couldn't handle that. He can't. It will be more destructive for Jaden Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be better that Jaden Smith now would get a new identity, a new home, a new place. And at his age of 12, how many of us 5 or 10 years from now would identify him as the 12-year-old boy we all see on this social media network? No. 5 to 10 years from now, he will have total different looks and identity. Ladies and gentlemen, do you understand the pressure that this child would come under, the stress? People calling him every day, questioning him, where were you? What happened? What do you know? L.A. Lewis, I've been watching you, my friend. What you're doing ain't working. And it won't work. Because, L.A. Lewis, you must understand the Data Protection Act before you comment. The story I'm to close with. Manchester High School is across from the National Commercial Bank. Jaden Smith attended the Manchester High School. Ladies and gentlemen, Jaden, it is said, made his way over to Megamart and then onto Perth Road and was last seen on Wesley Road or Wesley Road. First, this is not the first in the history of Jamaica and its records that someone went missing between Manchester High School, Megamart, and Perth Road. No. Let me bring your memory back into history of the records of Mandeville and Jamaica. Who remember the Moos? We call them the Moos. The owners of Moo Pen in Mandeville, Jamaica. Come on, Jamaica, listen to me carefully. Have you ever heard of the Chinese couple, the husband and wife that disappeared from Mandeville? Oh, you may ask, how did this get a part of Jaden's story? Across from Manchester High School is the National Commercial Bank. That was the property of the owners of Moo Pen. Once, Moo Pen Supermarket in Mandeville. Wonderful gentleman, wonderful lady, one of the most loving Chinese couple we ever had in Mandeville. Why I know so much? I knew them. I used to shop there as a student at college. And I have friends that have got work with them in the supermarket. And I saw them the very day before they disappeared. I usually talk to them They did not drive much. They would walk from their home to their supermarket, back and forth in the morning or evening. On many occasions, they would walk around the town of Mandeville. I remembered several evenings even walking with them to their home across from the Manchester High School, where NCB Bank is. That's the kind of people they were. You could walk with them and talk with them. They didn't have security. They didn't have anyone. They just disappeared. One evening they went home, or morning, and that was it. They disappeared. And it took the police investigators months upon months to find out what happened. But at that time, they had already sold the property and was now living in the English side. So they did not disappear from that property. They disappeared from their home in English side. You can go and do your research on that family. Now the husband and wife disappeared. But when they were found, it was a sad day in the history of Mandeville. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the first time that we are hearing of missing incidents within that region of Mandeville. But I pray this will be the last. And may the news of finding Jaden be a great one. We may never get to see the face of Jaden again, not because of him being unalive, but because of him getting a new identity. It is possible. With the protectors of information, with the 2020 Jamaica Data Protection Act, where the Ministry of Education, with the principal of a school, they do have the right. They do have the right to control the information regarding student, parents, and teachers. Is it that Jaden is so protected that Jaden Smith will become a name that will not just be collected for data, but a name that may be erased and replaced with a new name? Is it possible? Let's see how the story unfold until we hear from the three great men and the three great women. My name is Orlando White, my friend, and I do leave you with this song that many of you told me that you love.
I want you to
written by yours truly and Glenn Graham.
It is not
enough
entitled to pay your bills.
What is in your hand?
Your stuff.
It is not enough
short edited
to pay your bills
what's in
and
your
buy your
hand.
stuff.
These
Have a good
young
night.
people, it was their first time in a studio, and I tell you much. We had to call our good friend Fabian Wright. Fabian Wright came and he had a little spice to what we had, and this was the result. Listen carefully. A song written and produced by yours truly along with Glenn Graham, and this song was done almost 10 years ago. What's in your hand? It's not enough. Give us your feedback.
Hey, listen to me. Jesus is the ticket to my dream. He's faithful, and according to all his riches and glory, he's trustworthy. I can certainly trust him, yeah, with my entire plans for life. You cannot buy God's miracle, but you can always sow your seed. For whatsoever a man soweth, my friends, that you shall also reap. You sow sparingly, you'll reap sparingly, but if you sow bountifully, you'll reap bountifully. For whatever you sow in the kingdom of God, you'll reap 30, 60, or 100 fold. what's in your hand if it's not enough to pay your bills and buy your stuff? But when you put it in the hands of Jesus, you'll have enough and have left over. Don't eat your seed if you believe, then you shall see the miracles of God. 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, fed 5,000 men beside women and children. Jesus was invited to a wedding when Mary told him the wine ran out. Then Mary said to all those servants, whatsoever he said unto you, do it. Then Jesus told them, fill up the water pots, fill it up to the brim, and bear it now to the governor. And when the governor tasted the water Jesus turned to wine, he said they saved the best wine for the last. Hey, what's in your hand? If it's not enough to pay your bills and buy your stuff, but when you put it in the hands of Jesus, you'll have enough and have left over. Don't eat the sin if you believe, then you shall see the miracles of God. 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, fed 5,000 men beside women and children. Peter and his friend, they went out fishing. They toiled all night and they caught nothing. Then Jesus borrowed their empty boat and he used it to preach to the people. Then Jesus told them, launch out now in the deep and cast your net on the other side. Launch out now. And when they finally obeyed the master, their net began to break with many, many fishes. Hey, what's in your hand? If it's not enough to pay your bills and buy your stuff, but when you put it in the hands of Jesus, you'll have enough and have left over. Don't eat the seed if you believe, then you shall see the miracles of God. 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, fed 5,000 men beside women and children. Jesus was ministering to a multitude, and he told his disciples, give them food to eat. For if we send them home hungry, they will faint out by the way. A little boy heard it, gave Jesus his lunch. He blessed it and broke it and gave it to his disciples. There he fed 5,000 men beside women and children, and picked up 12 baskets of the increase. Hey, what's in your hand? If it's not enough to pay your bills and buy your stuff, but when you put it in the hands of Jesus, you'll have enough and have left over. Don't eat the seed if you believe, then you shall see the miracles of God. 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, fed 5,000 men beside women and children. Hey, what's in your hand? If it's not enough to pay your bills and buy your stuff, but when you put it in the hands of Jesus, you have enough and have